What's up, everybody? It's JT Sports back to you guys with another video, and I'm here with my Houston Texans 2019 training camp preview. Going to be previewing the Houston Texans training camp, giving you guys some things to watch and some players to watch and some position battles as well. So before I begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Upload NFL videos and NFL content daily. So the Houston Texans. Um, First we gotta talk about Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was sensational last year. He was very, very good for the Houston Texans. And I think Deshaun Watson has the potential to win NFL MVP this season if he's able to get some more help on the offensive line, because the offensive line for the Houston Texans last season wasn't really that good. He was basically running for his life back there. So if he's able to get some better protection back there, I think Deshaun Watson could very much end up winning NFL MVP this season. And I'm going to be watching him and how he continues to develop throughout training camp, because Deshaun Watson is a really, really good quarterback. I think he's really, really underrated. I think in the next season or so, he can end up being a top 10 quarterback. I think Deshaun Watson is really, really good, and I think he's really underrated. He had some very good performances last season. And next time, I'm going to move up into the halfback position. I'm really interested in this halfback battle. They have Lamar Miller and Dante Foreman. Now, for a while now, I've been talking about how I think Lamar Miller is underrated and things like that. And Houston Texans fans always comment underneath my videos and say that Lamar Miller isn't really that good. And Houston Texans fans have been saying this to me for a while now. So Lamar Miller, it's going to be interesting, because I thought Dante Foreman was going to be able to dethrone him, but he was suffering injury and stuff like that. So when he was able to come back, he was never really able to fully get going. So this training camp now with Dante Foreman really healthy, it's going to be interesting to see how that ends up unfolding, because throughout training camp, I'm going to be looking forward to seeing Dante Foreman and how he performs, because I've never really seen Dante Foreman really play at the NFL level. I haven't even caught a preseason game of Dante Foreman. So this is really going to be the year that I'm really going to be keeping a big eye on Dante Foreman, because I really want to see how good he is, because I remember when he played for Texas back in college, he was really, really good. He was one of the best halfbacks in college football during his time at Texas. So I'm really interested in seeing what he does for the Houston Texans throughout training camp. And is he going to be able to push Lamar Miller? Because Lamar Miller went to the Pro Bowl last season. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does in training camp, because Houston Texans fans, like I said earlier, they've been on my case about how they think Lamar Miller isn't really that good. And I'm going to be interested in seeing, can Dante Foreman end up dethroning Lamar Miller if he's not that good. And although we might not see that in training camp, this is something that I'm going to keep my tabs on during the regular season, because normally if it's a little bit of a halfback battle there, you're going to see halfbacks normally in training camp, the battle doesn't get resolved until midway through the season. So I'm going to see if Dante Foreman is going to be able to take a big dip in Lamar Miller's carries this season. So it's really going to be a little bit too early to tell during training camp who's going to be able to start that halfback position. But I'm just going to say Lamar Miller starts. But I'm going to be interested in seeing Dante Foreman's progression through training camp for the Houston Texans. And is he going to be able to eventually, when the regular season starts, going to be able to get a little bit more carries than Lamar Miller and take away some of those carries from Lamar Miller? So I'm going to be interested in watching that. Next up, we got to talk about the biggest thing, the biggest concern for the Houston Texans is that offensive line. So at the left tackle position, they have Matt Khalil. I think he's going to end up being the starter there. Then you got Julian Davenport, who I think he's going to end up being the starter, or the backup, excuse me. According to Pro Football Focus, he was the 73rd worst offensive tackle in the game last season with a 54.9 grade by Pro Football Focus. And Matt Khalil, he's a pretty solid off the tackle. So I think he's going to be a major improvement at that left tackle position for the Houston Texans this season. And it's going to be interesting watching him progress throughout training camp for the Houston Texans. Next up, I think we have a position battle here at that left guard spot for the Houston Texans. Excuse me if I mispronounce these names. We have Saino Kelimate. He was the 56th worst offensive guard in football last season, according to Pro Football Focus, and had a 56 grade by Pro Football Focus. And next up, we have Martinez Rankin. He wasn't no better. He had a 42.1 Pro Football Focus grade, and also was graded by Pro Football Focus as the worst offensive guard in the NFL, or one of the worst offensive guards in the NFL, with a 80th ranking out of all the offensive guards in the NFL. He was ranked the 80th worst. So that's going to be interesting seeing who's going to end up starting at that left guard spot for the Houston Texans, and who's going to be that starting left guard for the Houston Texans when week 1 comes around. So I'm going to be keeping close tabs on that throughout training camp. That's a very, very big position battle there. That off the guard spot or left guard spot is going to be really, really key for the Houston Texans when it comes to running the football. So that's something that people really, really need to look out for when training camp comes around and who ends up starting there. Then at center position, we have Nick Martin. Nick Martin, not really that much of a question mark. He's pretty solid. He's probably the best offensive lineman that they have on their team right now. Next up, we have another position about that right guard position. We have Zach Fulton. He had the 54 overall grade by Pro Football Focus, and he was graded out as the 60th worst center or right guard in the NFL last season. So they also got rookie Max Sharpling, who they got out of Northern Illinois University. So it's going to be interesting to see who ends up starting at right guard for the Houston Texans. I'm going to take Max Sharpling, the rookie that they drafted. I think he's going to end up winning that battle, but I'm not going to count out Zach Fulton as well. So it's going to be interesting watching how that right guard spot ends up for the turning out during training camp for the Houston Texans in 2019. Then at right tackle, we could have a little bit of a position battle there, but I think Titus Howard is going to end up winning that. They drafted him this season in the first round, so I'm expecting him to end up being the starter. So that's pretty much the position battles that you guys need to look out for on the offensive line. Like I said earlier, I'm going to recap some. At left guard, we have Sieno Kelamate, and Martinez Rankin. Then at right guard, we have Zach Fulton versus Max Sharpling. So it's going to be interesting to see who starts at those two offensive guard spots for the Houston Texans this season. And also the halfback position, like I said earlier, it's going to be interesting seeing Dante Foreman's progression and how good is he going to get throughout the Houston Texans training camp. And I really want to see how good is he going to be, and is he going to be able to take a big chunk of Lamar Miller's carries away by the time we get through the midway point of the 2019 NFL season. So those are position battles you guys need to look for on the offensive side of the ball. Next, I want to touch on the wide receiver position, since I don't really have that many position battles on the defense side of the ball and things I'm looking for on the defense. So I want to talk about the position, the wide receiver position. So they got DeAndre Hopkins, who a lot of people are starting to consider the best wide receiver in all of football, since he had an outstanding season last year. And I might end up agreeing with you guys. It's pretty hard because you have Antonio Brown, you have Julio Jones, you have DeAndre Hopkins. All three of these guys do a lot of things well, but I could legit understand the case for why people think DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver in football. I think Antonio Brown's the best receiver in football with what he's able to do with the ball in his hands and how good he is on running routes. But any three of those guys, I wouldn't be mad if people were to think that DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones were the best wide receivers in football. I wouldn't disagree with them. I could agree as well, but I just think Antonio Brown's the best wide receiver there. But DeAndre Hopkins is pretty good. You got Kiki QT. Kiki QT was a guy who, around this time last season, when I made my Houston Texans 2018 training camp preview, I told Houston Texans fans to look out for Kiki QT because he was one of the most underrated wide receiver prospects coming out of that 2018 draft class. He's very fast, runs very good routes, and we saw a little bit of that last season, but ultimately injuries ended up debunking his season, and when he came back from those injuries, he wasn't really the same player before. So it's going to be interesting seeing Kiki QT, how he progresses throughout training camp as well, and how good is he going to be in 2019, because he was pretty solid in 2018 as well. Then we got Will Fuller. Will Fuller is a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver, but the thing about it is that he's never able to stay healthy. So going through training camp is going to be interesting seeing how he looks coming off of that injury that he suffered last season. And like I said, if Will Fuller's able to stay healthy for a whole entire season, he's a Pro Bowler. I don't think that's too much of a debate or argument there. He's one of the better deep threats in all the NFL. And it's going to be interesting seeing can this Houston Texans wide receiving core, other than DeAndre Hopkins, stay healthy. So now we move on to the defense side of the ball. I hope you Houston Texans fans don't really get mad at me for the analysis that I have on the defense side of the ball. But the thing that I'm going to be looking forward, looking at the most on the defense side of the ball is that cornerback position. I think we have a cornerback battle between Aaron Colvin and Lonnie Johnson Jr. Now, Aaron Colvin didn't really have that good of a season last year, had a 52.2 grade by Pro Football Focus, and he wasn't really that good. And normally when teams try to convert good slot corners to outside corners, it doesn't really work out that well. So I think Lonnie Johnson Jr., a guy who they drafted in this year's NFL draft, really underrated cornerback out of Kentucky. Solid tackler, also very solid in coverage as well. I think he can end up giving Aaron Colvin a run for his money during training camp. And I wouldn't be surprised if Lonnie Johnson Jr. ended up starting over Aaron Colvin sometime during this NFL season if Aaron Colvin continues his poor play. So that's a position battle that I'm going to be looking for on the defense side of the ball. Then I'm going to be giving you guys some of my players to watch. Like I said, Lonnie Johnson Jr., he's a guy to watch, rookie cornerback out of Kentucky University, pretty solid. Dante Foreman, is he going to be able to take some of Lamar Miller's carries away? Kahale Warren, he's a rookie tight end out of the 2019 NFL draft class, really underrated tight end. Very solid hands as well. And then Kiki QT, like I said, he was very solid when he was able to stay healthy last season. So it's going to be interesting watching how good is he going to be in year 2 of his NFL career. So this is it for my Houston Texans 2019 training camp preview. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below, and also comment some things and some players that you guys want to be watching during the Houston Texans training camp in 2019. Also, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content. And thanks for watching.